welcome to the Trauma Treatment Collective vlog. I am here today to talk with you about working with parents and helping them to become trauma informed. I am excited to talk about this topic. I actually have had the opportunity of working with parents in the first part of my career. I worked with nothing but children, and mainly children who had been in foster care or had some experience in foster care and who were adopted out of foster care. In my work with parents and children during that time, I actually created a parenting program that I would actually have my clients go through. So if a client wanted to work with me, the parents would have to go through, or if a family wanted to work with me, the parents would have to go through a parenting course to help them kind of get on the same page with me. So we had some common language, they understood where I was coming from, and we were kind of on the same playing field, because I think parenting a child who has experienced trauma or is affected by trauma, or have trauma symptomology, however you want to phrase that, is different from parenting a child who doesn't. And so I think it's important, while some of the things that I think I encourage parents who are parenting from a trauma-informed lens, I encourage parents in general to do. I think it's important that this is something that they cannot not do, if you will. And so I created a parenting kind of class that I took them through, and I kind of adapted it from some stuff that I've gotten from a training that I had taken in Nebraska at the Nebraska Attachment and Trauma Institute. I had taken a training there that incorporates EMDR and family work, and they also have a parenting program that they take their parents through, and so I adapted some of their stuff and also then added some of my own stuff in. And so it's something that I was passionate about, and I definitely think it's important when working with children. I come from an attachment lens, and so I was doing a lot of attachment work because children were trying to get settled in their adoptive families. And so I often work with the children and parents, and so I'm going to talk a little bit about that. But I wanted to bring some things up and just talk about a couple of things for you to consider as you are thinking about working with parents and helping them become trauma informed. The first thing I think is psychoeducation and helping them to understand how trauma affects the brain and body. And I think that's really important, and helping them to be able to identify trauma responses and stress responses and where their children are in the window of tolerance, or where they are in their nervous system, however you want to kind of think about that. But I think the more parents understand what's happening for their child, the more they can have empathy for that child, the more they can connect with that child, and the more they feel like they have some understanding and some way of getting out of this situation. If I could say the number one thing when I'm working with parents, or when I have worked with parents in the past, has been feeling overwhelmed by all of the stuff that's happening for their child and not quite knowing what to do. And so they either go into a fight, flee, or freeze response themselves. And so here we have a child that's triggered, and now we have a parent that's triggered, and they're just kind of pinging off of each other, just triggering one another. And so that's the thing that we often get in our therapy rooms, are parents who are in children who are just in this very negative cycle with one another, and they feel super disconnected. So the more I can help parents understand that it's not them, that the child's not rejecting them. That was a lot of my adoptive work, was, families who are wide open to these children, and the kids are like, I don't want to have nothing to do with you, because they're scared, which then makes the parents feel rejected. But if you're working with bio families, it may not be that same response, or it may be, but a lot of times parents feel rejected, or they feel overwhelmed, or they feel angry by the child's responses, or how the child is behaving, if you will. And so I really try to provide that psychoeducation for parents. I have a video on my Facebook page that talks a little bit about how I do talk with clients, or you could use this with parents, to talk about the brain and how trauma affects the brain. So I'll link that in the comment section or the description section of this video, so that you can peruse that and see if that might be helpful for you. I also have a vlog that I've written in the past about the brain, and I'll link that as well. So that's helpful, having some psychoeducation, some form of really helping parents understand. I find that the simpler the psychoeducation, the better, and knowing that I'm going to have to repeat the psychoeducation because it's a lot of information. It's taken us years to kind of understand it, and I really do believe understanding trauma is layer upon layer. And so knowing that you're going to have to repeat that information again is really important, and it's okay. Try not to get frustrated with the family. It's like, hey, this is something we talked about, but just knowing that they are taking in a lot of information. They're also dealing with their child, and so that can sometimes be really overwhelming too, and that takes up a lot of brain space. So psychoeducation is the first thing. The second thing is thinking about the parent's own trauma history. And for some reason, I don't know why, but trauma finds trauma. Attachment challenges find attachment challenges. And so if we have a child who's struggling with something, more than likely it's going to find the parent's struggle. And so a lot of times where parents are coming from or where their lack of response is based in their and rooted in their own trauma history. And so the more you can kind of connect with a parent and help them understand their own trauma and how that impacts their responses, the more that they can overcome those things, work through those things, and heal with their child. A lot of times it's not just the child. A lot of times parents bring their child, but it's not just the child. A lot of times it's the system that needs to be healed, and we're all responding to something. And so the more you can kind of connect with the family, I like to always use the analogy of money in the bank. So I am building relationship, building rapport with the parents, building connection with them so that I have money in the bank, so that when I'm thinking, okay, there may be something going on, there may be something happening here for this parent, then I can kind of be able to kind of interject and kind of get in there and challenge the parent to kind of look at their own stuff and really help them to walk through that. I also will sometimes do the ACE with a parent. The ACE is the Adverse Childhood Experiences Assessment. I'll do that with them and have them kind of go through that and talk to them about that, just to kind of be able to help them to kind of connect. So again, if you can tell, I'm doing a lot of work individually with the parent to get them to a place where I feel like they have the knowledge, have the skills, have the abilities to be able to move forward. And then I'm also doing a lot of work with the child, and then I'm going to talk about doing work with the family, the child and the parent together. So having them be aware of their own trauma history and connecting with that and knowing how that's going to show up in the relationship and how that's going to show up in their responses to their child is really important. And then the third thing, which I've alluded to a couple of times here, is being able to do work with the parent. So I talk about the intensity of the work, having the parent come into the sessions, doing work with the child and parent together is really important. And I think it's something that is really helpful because I can get a regulated child all day, but helping a parent to regulate a child and knowing what works and how that feels and helping that child have that experience with their parent is really powerful, and it's something that they can take from their therapy experience into their everyday life and generalize it and keep using that skill set that works for them. So I really try to do a lot of work with the parent and child together so that they're practicing skills in session, and that I know that the parent has those skills. I can see them using those skills. I'm able to give them feedback and talk with them about what it felt like for them to be able to do it and where they're getting stuck and where the barriers are and what's the story in their head that's going on in the moment. And so the more I can help parents with that, the better I can help the family, and the more that that's going to sustain through time. And it's something that parents can take on through their therapy experience. So number one, psychoeducation, making sure that parents understand the brain and body. I would encourage you to take them through maybe like a 4-week, 5-week course before they get started in their individual. And for me, I worked with a lot of Medicaid clients because they still had Medicaid when they were stepping down from foster care and they were getting adopted into their families, and I would just charge the families. I know all families can't pay for a parenting class, but if you can find a grant or some way to fund that, I do think it is a great opportunity to really set families up for success if they have that psychoeducation in the beginning. It may be something that you just do for free as an add-on to your services. That could be another thing too. The reason why I say free, I know sometimes people are like, oh, free, is because it makes the work so much easier. When families are on the same page, you're not having to continually have these side conversations with families, and they're able to move through the work, and they know what you're talking about, and they understand why you're doing things and the way you're doing things, and that you kind of are all on the same playing field. It causes work to move faster, and that's why I incorporated it in my work. So I charge families. I had a sliding fee scale, so that's the way that I worked it. So that's just a suggestion to you of integrating it into your practice. If you work for an agency, really advocating with the agency about the importance of having parents go through some type of psychoeducation program to be able to get on the same page. The second thing is making sure that you work with their own trauma history, and making sure that you have families understand that may be impacting their ability to work through whatever's showing up in their family. So the more you can help them to become aware of that, the better. So just building up that rapport, building up that relationship in the beginning, allowing them to know that you're on their team, that you understand the stress that they're under, you understand where they're coming from, and then being able to help them to start looking at themselves and what they're kind of bringing to the system is really important. And then the third thing is helping clients, helping families with just kind of working in session together and making sure that you're bringing the children and the parents in a session together to really work on those skills and to really solidify them. So taking the time to do what I like to call the stabilization phase, where you are really knowing that the family has the skills to be able to support the child. They know what regulation is. They know how to regulate themselves. They know how to regulate their child, and they can really be able to show those skills and be proficient in those skills is really going to be helpful for the work. So those are some things that I think you might want to consider when you are working with parents and helping them to become trauma informed. I think it's really important. I'm a big proponent of, if you're working with children, you're working with parents. And so having some kind of program for them to go through is going to be vital, I think, to the work that you're doing. And it's going to help sustain the work long after the children are out of your care. It's going to help to keep those skills and those things in place and really help parents to really help their children heal. I do think they're a big part of the process. So helping them be a part of the process and having a way for them to be a part of the process, I think is really important in the success of your client. So hopefully that's helpful. I'm hoping that you can take something away from this and you're able to use it in your own practice. That's it for now, and have a great rest of your day.